Welcome everyone. My name is Sten Gustafsson, healthcare analyst here at ABG Sundal Collier. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest here today, Morten Henneveld, CEO of OssDsign.
Thank you very much.
Last night you presented some big news. So why don't you very briefly describe what you announced?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we had a number of great announcements last night. I think if we start with the first, we announced a new growth strategy for the company called Scale to Profit. As the word entails, it's all about scaling and it's also about getting to profitability. As part of that, we also updated our financial targets. So we now aiming at sales of more than 400 million SEK by 2028. And we also expect to be both profitable and cash flow positive during the second half of that strategy period. Now, in order to fund the growth strategy, we also conducted a directed share issue, raised in a very successful raise, 158 million approximately, before transaction costs to basically support that. And I think it's important to note here that this also means that the growth plan that we presented also again this morning, it is a fully funded plan. So the company is now fully capitalized until cash flow positive.
Excellent. And how do you see this sales ramp up until 28, up to 400 million and above? Is it going to be evenly spread? I mean, you're growing quite fast today.
Yeah.
Will it be,
I think we'll probably see a good steady pace. I don't think we are not guiding specifically on year over year. So I think we have a strong momentum right now, and that's essentially the momentum we are building. Then a big part of the plan is that we want to double the sales force by the end of 26. And of course, as these people come in, they have a certain ramp-up curve, and therefore we also expect sales to somewhat follow the speed with which we actually bring or double that sales force. So I think there are a number of factors that but we feel very confident on the plan. We're going to double the sales force. We are also going to heavily accelerate our marketing efforts. We'll develop 2 new products. One is expected to launch in 26 and the other one around 27, 28. And then we are also going to go all the way in on the clinical programs. That has been a key priority for us. We have now covered many of the bases from preclinical into first in patient clinical data to real world with our PREPARE registry. And now we also want to do the larger randomized control study, which basically makes the clinical repository complete.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And how dependent are you on the new products that you talked about? Or I guess you can probably reach 400 million with Catalyst today in spine alone.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'll go into that detail, but I think it's worth. I mean, we're going to develop 2 products. One is about 20-25% of the market is now minimally invasive. We know our product is already used there, so people take it out of the syringe and put it down their own cannulas. So the product we are coming will also somewhat cannibalize some things that we are already doing. But I think it's worth noting that actually not a lot of competitors have, if any, actually have a dedicated MIS product as such. So it will help us on the differentiation. What would be a more incremental or direct incremental revenue driver is the hydrophilic strip, because those are about 20-30% of our lower back cases today, and we cannot address those cases because we simply don't have the product that some surgeons just prefer to use. But of course, the sheer fact that it will launch at towards the end of the strategy period means that the sales numbers behind that product, all things equal, will be less, and therefore the risk in the strategy period will be less on the new products.
Yeah, and the new therapeutic areas you talked about today, the pelvic and foot and ankle. I suppose pelvic is covered by spine surgeons, so probably that's an easy one. But the foot and ankle, will you earmark sales reps for that specific indication because it's a different type of surgeon?
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly say, within pelvis, we're already doing the sacroiliac, what's called SI fusions. It's done by spine surgeons in outpatient clinics and things like that. So that's right down our alley. Those are people we typically work with in the main hospital. So we are somewhat already down that path. Foot and ankle, of course, is slightly different, right? We have been doing foot and ankle cases. The second case we ever did in the US was actually a foot and ankle case. But it is a different surgeon group. It is, special foot and ankle doctors. You need to attend different congresses, right? So by the time you go in there, you need to think things through. And I think it's premature right now to actually go into detail about how exactly we'll go to market. That's something we'll figure out.
Yeah.
The most important thing and what we're doing right now is that we're getting all our ducks in a row. We are now collecting all the data on the cases we have. We're teaming up with some quite noteworthy KOLs.
Yep.
And basically preparing for whenever the time is right, we can press the button and we can go to market. How exactly we do that, I think that's premature right now.
And going back to the two new products, the MIS and the strip, is it fair to assume that you can launch the MIS product sometime early 26?
We can launch it in 26, as we said.
Okay.
It can be late, it can be earlier.
But
it's a faster route to market, right?
Yeah.
So the MIS, as we also announced this morning in our webcast, we expect that product to launch in 26, and the hydrophilic strip is a more full-blown development. It's an entirely new formulation. So that will launch either in 27 or 28.
Excellent. And then I thought it was really interesting, and I think it's good for you to do a full multi-center clinical trial, level 1. I'm sure it's going to help you drive sales, but it's expensive and it takes time. Talk to us. Is it US-centric? You talked about 300-400 patients, 4 or 5 centers at least. They're all in the US and
yeah, I mean the current thinking. So we are quite early in the process. We have started discussing with some doctors and some centers, of course. Excuse me. But we need to figure out exactly what it is. The current thinking is that this would be a US focused. It could be 10, it could be 20 centers, depending on, and 300 or 400, 250. Time will tell when we end up with the final protocol. I think what we wanted to explain to people is that this is not just a small undertaking. We're really going to put our money where our mouth is and fulfill on what we've said from the very beginning, that we want to demonstrate and prove our product, because not only because we're in the industry we're in, but also because by and large in the industry it hasn't been done. There's still many products that carry very little data. So we see this as a way of really differentiating. And of course, when you have level 1 data, you get a chance to engage with the best of these of surgeons in the best of the centers. And it also means, of course, that you will become, in the industry, OssDsign will become one of very few that actually have level 1 data. So we will become this top tier of a biologics company. And just by doing that, I think we're sending a very clear signal to the market and to surgeons and the likes that we are dead serious about this. And we are confident that we can prove a very, very strong result even in a large trial. Yeah,
no, that's really interesting. And just a ballpark figure of the timeline. But I guess now you're in discussion. If you assume the trial starts early next year or sometime during 26.
It takes about, I would say, it could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months to get everything lined up, right? It's a big protocol. It's a lot of centers. There's going to be investigators and so on. So I would say anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So sometime in 26, we assume that we can start the trial.
Yeah, and then what's the timeline for?
A little bit depending on how big the numbers is. What we said this morning is it's probably going to be around 5 years. And that is just because, the enrollment time in these type of studies, right? That doesn't mean that we won't see value coming out, on a gradual basis. We will have to see, but the bigger studies, of course, will take longer, of course.
Yep. And then finally, on the market, anything that has changed dramatically, as you see, or is it more of the same?
I would say clearly more of the same. There's been a little bit more turmoil in the last couple of years. Some of our competitors struggling a little bit more, some teaming up with others. All that is crazy noise in the market. We like noise, right? We are a growing company, so uncertainty in the market is good for us. As you can see, we keep winning more business. We keep capturing more market shares. So I don't see any plan, as you also see on the 4 priorities for the next 4 years. They're very, very similar to what we're doing today, and they are very similar to what we announced in September 23. So I think we have a recipe that's working. The essence behind the plan is that we simply need to invest more and have more horsepower and be able to accelerate the company, because we are now at a point where we have treated 10,000 patients. We have proved again and again across multiple studies that we have a product that is highly differentiated. It's growing, it's generating better outcome, and it's growing bone a lot faster than what we typically see. And we now have 14 different publications of that, right? So I think we have come to a point now where we can really take share and we can really accelerate the company right now.
Perfect. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
stopping by.
Thank you.